you going, Bob?
Fire away.
Fire away. Fire away. Look, I've done this a few times now, and to be honest, I've never been more nervous than what I am right now. Bob?
I've got to interrupt you. I say with great pride that senior minister in the new ALP government, or well, not so new now, they said, do you ever get nervous? Only when Bob Katter's going to ask me a question in the parliament. And that's the way I want them. Thank you very much.
Well, I am definitely nervous, Bob, but I am also very interested to hear a bit about you. And I thought, where might I start if I was going to ask Bob a couple of questions? And I went back to your inaugural speech, which was delivered on the 6th of May in 1993. And there were a couple of things in that speech, Bob, that sort of stood out for me. One of them is you believe in humility, and you recognised a lot of people and key supporters, including your mum, who had helped you get to where you were. You also have a very fearless way of calling out the issue, but not only to call the issue out, but to put a human face to it as well. Do you think those two key traits are still important in politics? And if you were starting again, would you do anything differently?
We have a key seat that we want to win this election. The election's on in Queensland, and why this meeting is so important, I think, is because for the first time in 30, 40 years, the Country Party will become reality again, and that's the KP. We're all country boys. And when I say that, we hold 4 seats now. 8 seats would have given you control of every parliament for the last 80 years in Queensland, bar 3. There were 3 landslides. And this might be a landslide, who knows in politics. But I think most people are conceding 2 seats to us this election, but there's another 2 that we'd like to think we could win. So we'll see what happens. But if we go back in, the Country Party's back in the saddle.
No, that's I think do you have a particular one of those 2 seats that you think that you might win that is close? Like, is there something you've got to do between now and then to get it across the line?
One of those seats which everyone says we'll win, but at the Maribor Rodeo, about 2,000 people, I suppose. But I never made it even to Sideshow Alley because when we went in, and Robbie Katter was there, and our candidate, who was very popular and well known, and a few other very prominent people. And we never made it even to Sideshow Alley because I estimate over 250 photographs were taken. But, your question, I'm different than other people. I'm very scared of popularity. I watched Pajoki Peterson, 1,200 people get up and give a standing ovation for 15 minutes. And the next year, when he was going to jail, there were 23 of us there, And there was a bloke 2,000 years ago had a bit of an experience like that, So I'm very mistrustful of popularity, extremely mistrustful of it and scared of it. But we are most certainly enjoying that. But with young people, and I've asked my staff, Kirsty Bevan is here this evening, and I pride myself on searching every day of my life for really super bright, super capable people, and she most certainly fits into that category. But I said to my super bright, super smart staff, why do young people react to us? And they said, it's your reality. You're sort of not playing games. You're real. And I came out of a parliament in Queensland where the entire cabinet were like that. And I was probably one of the blokes that, if anything, played a bit of politics. For the rest of them, they were men on a mission. Their mission was to create great wealth for everyone in Queensland. And that meant opening up coal mines, as well as building dams and giving opportunities to people that they could never dream of. I think there's about 1,000 farms created with the Burdekin Falls Dam. And there was about, I won't go into all the details, but the farms, there was a resumption of land with the Brigalow scheme, and with the dam schemes, you resume the land, then you balloted it out. And that was done by the Theodore government, and they took over all of Queensland's land mass, just took it off the British owners, and balloted it out. And this is incredible, and I'll finish on this note. This is incredible. They won every single seat in every single election for 48 years outside of Brisbane. We loved them so much for what they had done. We just voted every single. There's no for the, and the Labor Party split in two. Half of them went in the Country Party. So really, it was the same people doing the same thing for the next 50 years. And we won almost all the seats. And I'll shut up on that note.
No, I'm interested in your point around the prosperity and for Queenslanders, but also, I've noticed over your career, you've been a real staunch supporter of regulation within our regional and rural industries, and in an era where everyone continues to get pushed to the free market and the free market should determine everything, is it your view that we've gone too far, and what do we need to do to fix it?
The prominent leader of the LNP died some years ago, and they said, "You going down to the funeral?" Yeah, I didn't want to go down actually because I wanted to. I used a very crude expression on his coffin as it went past. I'll say spit on it, but that was not what I said. I had to sit there and watch this stinking, slimy lowlife deregulate the sugar industry, deregulate flowers, eggs, peanuts, maize, tobacco. 15 separate industries were completely and utterly destroyed. You take away our protection, and I use this example all of the time. If you don't understand what protection means, think about this, right? Your gladiator is going into the arena. My hat's called an arena. Your gladiator's going to the arena, and you say, "Oh, just give me your shield and your helmet." And he said, "I can't fight without a shield and a helmet." "Oh no, mate, it'll make you tough. Without a shield and a helmet, it'll make you tough." He says, "No, the other bloke's got a shield and a helmet." "No, you'll get tough by this." And he said, No, it won't. It'll make me dead. That's what it'll make me. And that is a good analogy for what has happened in rural industries. The industry that carried this nation from its very inception to 1990 was the wool industry. It was bigger than coal in the year that Keating deregulated it and utterly destroyed it. So here's an industry that had carried this nation for all of its history, and it was completely destroyed. There's hardly any sheep left. I don't know about other places, but we had 3.5 million sheep in my old state electorate. I doubt whether we've got 100,000 now. And thanks to this recent ban, I doubt whether we'll have any at all very shortly. So, you destroyed the biggest income earner for this country overnight. And I might add, the biggest losers were the shearers, who were the heart and soul of the Labor Party.
And Bob, I was lucky enough about 12 months ago to spend a day with you in Canberra, where you very kindly chaperoned me around and opened doors for me. It was I wouldn't have got past security if it wasn't for you. But that was all in relation to the development of these codes that we're starting to see now. There's the dairy code, there's a grocery code. I was there, and you were very, very gracious in helping around the poultry code. Do you think these codes of conduct are working? Are they actually helping regional Australians and primary producers?
Well, if you asked me this question 18 months ago, I'd say no. They're as useful as mammary glands on a bull. But I was very surprised. Our blokes, we couldn't get anything substantial through. But we got a framework of statutory marketing. I prefer to call it arbitration, but we got a framework back in sugar. And there was no legal compulsion, so it wasn't worth two bob as far as I was concerned. And I said, are the Liberals agreeing to it, to Robbie Katter and Nick Demetto? And Nick said, and they'll only agree to it if you take the statutory clauses out. So they'll only agree to it if it doesn't work. And I said, so what are you going to do? He said, oh, something's better than nothing. But funnily enough, the Magistrates Court decided that the framework holds would be knocked over on appeal to a district court, but all the same, it's there, and it's been a very powerful weapon. So in answer to your question, 2 years ago I'd say, no, absolute rubbish, but there's an intimidation value in those arrangements.
And Bob, I sense in a lot of your public addresses that there's a growing level of frustration in the divide between the bush and the city, and that information gap has never been bigger, and you do a lot for that. What can the rest of the room do to help sort of fill those people in and help people understand what's actually happening in our regions?
Look, I don't know about other people, but I just find in politics, and I was brought up with very brutal people, the Jockey Peterson, to quote but one, but Russell Innes wouldn't have been very far behind him with brutality. And look, you can run it by being nice, but being nice, I inherited the First Australians department. It was run by a bloke that Jockey Peterson was in love with. He thought he was fantastic. And it was quite obvious to me that I either destroyed him or he destroys me. And that's how I like it, actually. And with the nationwide publicity was on 60 Minutes and, feature stories, The Australian and everything, the battle between myself and him. And, all right, you do these things with ruthless brutality. He should have been a little bit more careful when he drove his car around to certain motels, and when I put the full details before him, I just find that being nice and putting up a logical argument is not worth two bob. They'll agree with you. I met with Tanya Plibersek, and I nearly died of shock because I thought she was dumb blonde. I know, I apologise to all blondes, but Kirsty, you're on my side, aren't you? I mean, but I said, now look, the next power station will be coal, and all of the CO2. CO2 is valuable. We don't want to just go up in the air, and it's valuable. And she said, yeah, I know where you're going with this. I'll tell you the algae that I think you should be using, but you'll want to use that algae that produces stock feed. I think we should. And she had the Latin names for the algae. She was a mile ahead of me. And then Kirsty's great mate, Carla, went down to Tasmania to see all the advantages in this area. And she'd been down there 2 weeks before. She was ahead of us again. But is anything going to happen? Oh, she's got the knowledge. She's got a very good intellect. She's got the knowledge. She understands it. She knows what's should happen. Is anything going to happen? No. I can tell you right now, nothing will happen.
And through your career, Bob, you've been a huge advocate for nation-building projects. You've been a real promoter of potential dams and things like that will not only create employment but create a whole range of activity in regional areas. Why do you think that you've sort of been out in front and no one's followed there? Like, why haven't other politicians sort of followed your lead in relation to some of those projects?
Neil Turner, none of you are old enough to remember Neil, but he should have been the Premier of Queensland, and a story for another day. But very funny bloke, big, powerful bloke, shearer. Then he owned a couple of little spreads and a couple of butcher shops. And but he was my best mate in the state parliament. But we were having a fierce battle over an arts centre in Brisbane. And I said, oh, yeah, Premier, I got fettlers that are carting water for a shower. And we're going building this sort of stupidity. And anyway, the Liberals were all yelling out, bloody country party. They wouldn't know what culture means. And Turner leaned around, this bloke kept yelling out, bloody country party wouldn't know what culture means. And he grabbed him by the throat, pulled him out of his chair, and he said, we do so know what culture means. It means agriculture. But anyway, Turner and I went to see Jockey Peterson, and he thought we were going to get a spill because we were both pretty pretty aggressive sort of blokes. And he was really worried that we were going to announce that we were going to knock him off. But anyway, but we're both. I'm 6 foot and he's turned to 6'2", and Joe's only a little bloke, and we're standing over him, and I asked for the Bradfield scheme, and Turner asked for the Morven Weir, and Turner said, "So you ended up with nothing, and I ended up with the Morven Weir." Well, the truth of the matter is, he was right. But I would say, in fairness to myself, that I spent 15 years in the State House doing nothing else except trying to get the Bradfield scheme, because all my bosses told me I was supposed to get it, all the smart people. I'm not smart, but I listen to smart people. They told me how to get it. Well, we got it. The state and federal government announced the building of the Bradfield scheme, and all of the engineering work was done in that year. It was all done, ready to go. And Jockey Peterson stabbed in the back a year later, and Malcolm Fraser and Doug Anthony are gone a year later as well. So I'm back to where I started from. So now I'm after Weir and Charters Towers. But look, if we get the balance of power in Queensland, for those of you who know anything about the Bradfield scheme, it turns the upper Herbert. But if they have a massive flood in the upper and lower Herbert, the town of Ingham will go under 30 foot of water. And that's happened in blackfella memory, not in whitefella memory, but it'll happen. But they're very anxious to turn the upper Herbert into the upper Burdekin and then go out onto the Western Plains, the Bradfield scheme. So, we're getting close. And if the Snowy Mountains was proposed by, what's his name? He had a glorious Polish name, Strzelecki, was proposed by Strzelecki. 75 years later, they started building the Snowy. We've only got 50 years up so far, I'm hoping.
I've only got a couple more questions, Bob, and then
I'm sorry, I'll be briefer. Yeah.
No. It's no problem there. You're actually doing a lot better than I thought. I thought it was going to be a bit harder to get a word in, but no, you've been very kind. So I've got a couple more questions, Bob, and then I might turn it over to the room. Just something slightly different. The Nationals came out the other day and said they're going to deal with the compensation that relates to the live trade ban, which is obviously dated now, but that would have impacted a lot of people in your region. Why do you think that's all of a sudden become a priority?
There's election on. 7 or 8 months, a federal election on. And, politicians' promises before an election, every election I've had to put up with, since I got out of the party, they go along and promise this and promise that. Honestly, you people so stupid that you believe in a politician's promise before an election. They've been there for 16 of the last 22 years or whatever it is. Why haven't they done it? If they're so keen on doing it, why didn't they do it? But in this case, no, look, in fairness to them, I think they will do it. And I can't, there's a very serious constitutional question here. The courts have said that the money must be paid, and the federal government is not paying the money. They are defying the Constitution of Australia. And I'm going to have discussions with senior leaders in the cattle industry. Some of them have been going too quiet on this. I think it's time for brutality. You're unconstitutional. It's got to go to Governor General. It's got to go to the High Court. But the courts have already decided they've got to pay the money, and they are defying the court system. The separation of powers is not existing or being undermined.
And a bit of a lighter note question for me before I hand over to the floor, Bob. I went to the Batuta article, the Batuta Advocate website, and they produce a lot of material around you. Does that sort of satire ever bother you? Do you ever sort of get annoyed by that sort of thing?
Ladies, please excuse me for using bad language, but those bastards, when they'd found out that Mount Isa had applied for the Winter Olympics, they put in for Batuta. Fair go, fellas. That's just not playing square, Yeah. So you know, they're a pack of mongrels, I'm telling you, you know.
Okay, so Bob has very kindly offered to take some questions from the floor. So what I'd ask you to do is to introduce yourself, and please, these are questions for Bob. These aren't an opportunity to make any statements or anything like that. So and I'll hand over to George. But introduce yourself and fire away.
Yeah, right. As you're asking those questions, Cam Parker is in the room today and is running our show at the present moment. But if we get that balance of power, I found out, to my great happiness, that having the balance of power is a lot more powerful than being the government. You know, I mean, you can just don't ask, you tell them what you want. And also haven't actually technically had the balance of power. It's been so close that they've had to be nice to me. They got so used to being nice to me, they're sort of doing it by mistake now. You know, but we are very close to getting balanced power in Queensland. And when we get it, it's back to the country party. And if we were ruthless and brutal, I don't think you've seen anything yet, because 3 of our blokes played very serious rugby league, and they're not nice people. You know.
Okay, thanks, Bob, for that wonderful chat. You've obviously been booked in here for a number of months to come and speak to us. Do you have a direct line with Peter V'landys to have the Queensland Cowboys playing here in Sydney this weekend on the same weekend that you're here?
Well, I told you I've got a lot of power.
And secondly, I take a leaf out of Lee Sales here, and I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to give you some names, and if you could kindly just say the first word that comes to your mind. And I'll give the ability or the opportunity to say pass. Okay? Have you done this before?
Yeah, but there's ladies in the room. Can I say bastard?
You can.
Right, good.
Go.
Go.
Malcolm Turnbull.
Bastard.
Barnaby Joyce.
Bastard.
Can we elaborate a bit further than that word, please? Jackie Lambie.
I love Jackie. You know, we fight for the soldiers.
Adam Bann.
Adam Bann. It's behind me. Yeah. Bastard is too nice, so I'll pass.
Barnaby Joyce.
Yeah, righto. He was the bloke that was caught rolling drunk in the street recently. Yeah, well, I sort of know a bit about family.
Just a quick one-word answer, Bob.
Yeah, righto. No, so it's good there's one word, because I don't want to go into it.
Okay,
Yeah, right.
I'll let you go with that. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
Hi, Bob. Scott Bouvier. I have a sister in your electorate at Mission Beach who's a big fan. I just wanted to ask what you...
Mission Beach has been 2 years in a row voted one of the 4 most beautiful places on earth. Kirsty Bevan comes from Mission Beach, so does my chief of staff.
You know, it's a beautiful spot.
Keep going.
So what are your thoughts about... I asked this question hesitantly about what the Australian cattle industry should be doing about methane reduction. What do you think is going to be the best sort of solutions there?
Well, if you find a solution, could you apply it to my 2 dogs who sit in the lounge room and... No, look, it's hard to be serious. It is hard to be serious, isn't it? But, you know, a beast puts on maybe a kilogram a day, maybe a bit better in better country. Well, that's where that come from, you know. It's hydrocarbons, you know. I mean, they're taking carbon out of the sky all the time, the cattle industry. But, you know, it fascinates me that we're going to clear 1 million hectares of trees that absorb carbon dioxide to put in glass that will for 20 years. And then after that, we'll actually put carbon dioxide into the sky after the 20 years. And they're not going to be removed. So the same people that are talking about this are putting 1 million hectares under glass. Instead of flying over trees, you'll fly over glass. And to quote the bloke in North Queensland who was leading the anti-Chulumban battle, which we won, I might add, wind farm, biggest wind farm in Australia, we won the battle. And but he said, what is happening here? Well, what is, and he's a lover of nature. I won't say he's a greenie, but he's a lover of nature. He said, what is happening here is that a beautiful nature wonderland is going to be turned into an industrial wasteland. And that is the same logic that I would apply to this incredible stupidity. Well, let's take the animals out, the ox, beef, whatever term you want to use. Let's take it out of the equation. Oh, about 100 million people are starved to death every year. When I said that at the river debate in Brisbane, they're all greenies, they said, yeah, well, that's good. We got too many people now. Oh, so we're going to starve them to death, are we? That's your solution. Well, no one laughed. I thought it was very funny, but they didn't laugh.
Thanks, Bob. Robert Hardy from the Farm Writers Committee. You've spoken a lot about being in the balance of power potentially in Queensland, but there's an election in Australia in the not-too-distant future where you could be in the balance of power in Canberra. Two questions related. Can you tell us two things, or something you admire about both Peter Dutton and Anthony Albanese? And secondly, what will you be asking them for if they need your vote to govern after the election?
Sorry, what was the last bit?
What will you be asking them for if they come to you asking for your support to be the government after the next election?
I was asked at a meeting of very high-flying superstars, head of banks, that sort of thing, little quiet 12 people in the room, and they're all, captains of industry, who in the federal parliament could do the job. And I thought, well, I can't say nobody. That'll look terribly egotistical or something, and that's not going to look good. Then I said, well, the pick of them is probably Albanese. I don't know who was it was the Liberal Prime Minister then. I can't remember who. But I said, the pick of them is probably Albanese. But if you're saying, can he do the job? I'd say, no, he can't. But the pick of them, my pick would be Peter Cridlin. Now, Peter, that's a long time ago. Peter was still working in the Parliament at that stage, and all of them, I nodded around the table. But Peter Dutton is the pick, and I hate to say this, but because Albo's tried to do 8 things, and he's given the orders, and they haven't been carried out. And having said that, on the front bench of both sides, Dutton's the pick of them. And I say that because Peter thinks he's got courage. He's not, Jack McEwen said, you must get it right. The important thing in politics is get it right. That does not describe Peter. He's not going to die in the ditches to get it right. But all the same, if you ask me, he's a pick. And he's most certainly the pick in the Liberal Party. And I have never seen a weaker front bench in 50 years in Parliament than that Liberal front bench, except for Dutton and Hastie. Maybe O'Brien. So, maybe. So I just say that in answer to the question. That's a good question.
What's on your wish list, Bob? If they...
Look, you say that I'm obsessed with the Bradfield scheme. Well, I didn't know anything about anything. I'd never heard of the Bradfield scheme. And my tribal leaders, where I come from, North Queensland's Midwest, they told me I was to get the Bradfield scheme. But 15 years, well, I got it. Both the state and federal government announced it. Not because they liked me or because I had power or anything, but because I got them to look at it. And when they looked at it, they were the sort of people that said, yeah, that is bloody terrific, let's do it. And it was supposed to start when the Snowy Mountains was finished. The Snowy Mountains, people don't realise what it did. It enabled the doubling of agricultural production in Australia. Now, this scheme will go close to that. It won't be that good, but it'll go bloody close. You imagine doubling agricultural output in this country, and that's what you're looking at here. Now, is there a will to do these things? No. But is there a fear to do these things? Yes. And if we get balance of power in the state, then, either it gets done or knowing the people involved, there will be blood everywhere. Because, our 4 blokes, one of them should have played State of Origin for Queensland, and the other 2, they are both bad bastards, including one whose name's the same as mine. Real bad. So, look, I'm very hopeful. I'm very hopeful. And as Robbie Katter says, look, we're going to get there. It might not be this election. It mightn't be for 10 years. But I'm telling you right now, we're going to get there. Well, we're holding our 4 seats on 70%. So we will expand. And we build a fortress there, but then can start to help the rest of Australia. But look, I'm going a bit long, but I just want to make this point to you, right? The biggest industry in this country was the wool industry, was completely destroyed by the free marketeers. Completely destroyed by the free marketeers. And no one made any attempt when the Liberal National Party went back in to restore the statutory marketing authority created by our great leader at the time. Now, that's wool. Beef cattle, we had 32 million head of cattle in Australia. We now have 23 million. 24 million. And I can't see it improving. And there's just nothing happening out there that is going to warrant the increase in cattle numbers. So what's going on I carry a map and I just left it behind today, but I hold it up and I say, what's that? They say, it's a map of Australia, of course. No, it's not. It's a map of Australia shorn of a little tiny coastal belt. We dropped off Victoria, but who'd miss Victoria? And a little dot around Perth. That's 92% surface area of Australia. There's 1.2 million people when that map was drawn up. Now there's under 1 million people living in that area. Well, guess where all of the top export item iron ore is? Guess where all the gold is? Guess where all the coal is? Guess where all the gas is? Guess where all the moo cows are? Guess where all the grain is? I mean, in the golden part, where not only is no one living there, but in actual fact, those that are living there are leaving because they can't make it quit anymore. We're just being driven out of farming in this country. And 15 industries that I represent, John Anderson, and I'll mention his name, he gave an import permit to bananas from the Philippines. And Howard, who had just reached a point of having a gut full of him, excuse my crude language, right? He sacked him as Ag Minister later on. And but he gave the permit. There was the end of the banana industry. 6,000 jobs in the Kennedy electorate were to go. So if I finished him in the end and got him in the end, well, God will not punish me for that, I am sure. But he cold-bloodedly gave an import permit to completely destroy the banana industry, which is the biggest generic item sold in Woolworths and Coles in Australia. Now, I could talk about the sugar industry. It is a monopoly. You can't put sugar on the back of the truck like cattle and take it up the road to the next mill. It's only got 12 hours and it's got no sugar left in it. So it's got to be processed immediately after it's cut. So the local mill has a monopoly. And the wool industry was wiped out by the Labor Party. The timber industry was wiped out by the Labor and Liberal Party. The fishing industry was closed down by the Liberal Party. But the sugar industry was destroyed completely by the National Party. Every single sugar mill in Australia, this is the third biggest agricultural industry in the country. The whole economy of coastal Queensland depends upon it. And every single mill was owned by the farmers. When they deregulated us, John Anderson and co deregulated us, every single mill now is owned by foreign investors because the farmers went broke. The banks said, and quite right, I'm not blaming the banks for it, they said, mate, you're not meeting your payments, so you either sell your shares or we sell your farm. So they had to sell the shares. So now all of the industry is owned by foreign corporations. Boy, that was a good move, wasn't it? And God bless John Howard for sacking the bloke who did it. And, you know, people like I finished the job off. And look, I know this is terrible to talk badly about someone when he's not here to defend himself. But, you know, you had to be there and watch the deregulation of the dairy industry. I had the biggest dairy area in Australia. Guess where the biggest suicide rate was in Australia 2.5 years after deregulation. Well, I don't have to tell you. It was between Malanda and Atherton, the dairying area. We had 258 dairy farms, the biggest dairy farms in Australia. Now we got, I said 58 the other day, and Shane Canute, our state member, said try 48, Bob, and Lady behind her said try 38, Shane, 38. And the others exited, and a lot of them exited in the worst possible way, poor beggars. And they still vote, by the way, for the National Party. And I said, that makes your sin infinitely worse, that those poor people still believe in you. They still think they're voting for the Country Party. And that's what you did to them. Anyway, next question. I'll be more restrained.
Bob, Andrew Marshall from Australian Community Media, which in your neck of the woods is the North Queensland Register. I just wonder, and maybe I'm asking this question one question too late after having just heard your views on deregulation, but what's the, in all that time in both state and federal parliament, what's the thing that really makes you mad or unhappy, or what's the most disappointing thing that you've sort of come away from politics feeling? And maybe on the other scheme, what's the thing that makes you keep coming back and putting your hand up each year? Because I mean, I'm sure you could be fishing or doing a lot of other things and that you're not doing at the moment, rather than defending your electorate and trying to keep those 38 dairy farmers still in business. So two things: what's the most frustrating or stuff that makes you most upset about state and federal parliament, or whatever, and what's the most rewarding thing that you've done?
Oh yeah, look, most frustrating. It's easy, quick, and I just can feel the rage rising me every time I think about it. No, you know, I was blackfella minister, you know, and I said I went around all the blackfella communities and said, so what do you want to happen? And basically they all asked for a freehold title to land. Oh, yeah, well, there's no problem giving that, you know. So I just wrote out a bit of paper called an Act of Parliament and walked in and put it in there. And it's very embarrassing for me to say this, but they call them the Katter leases. They named them after me, you know. And what did I do? I asked them what they wanted, put it on a piece of paper, took it into Parliament. I mean, oh, geez, big deal, you know. I did nothing. But that's what they asked for. Well, it was taken off them when the socialists came in. Oh, we loved the black fellas, you know. We're voting yes in this election for them, you know. I just, hold on a minute, mate. Where they live, their life expectancy is 54. Because you took, and I just can't say this without the rage and fury rising in me. You think I got it in for the likes of that National Party leader? Well, I got more fury in this one. In the Torres Straits, I had 300 meals. I never touched a skerrick of food from mainland Australia. It was yams, sweet potatoes, pumpkins, mangoes, bananas, all grown in the backyard. Every single home in the Torres Straits had their backyard fruit and vegetable garden, and they'd had for 10,000 years or whatever, right? And also, of course, fish, you know, dugong, crayfish mainly, you know, all varieties of fish, fish food, prawns, everything like that. And now they cannot produce a single skerrick of food for themselves because the ALP government in Queensland said we have to protect the barrier reef. Well, the barrier reef is 300 kilometres from the Torres Straits, but they were not allowed to fish. So their staple diet was removed. All of the freezers on all the islands where they sold their commercial product to are gone. And the backyard, we've got to stop diseases coming in from New Guinea. Well, the war canoes and trading and raiding canoes have been coming down for 20,000 years. Anything that was going to come down would have come. So they closed down every single backyard fruit and vegetable garden. Now the people have to get fruit and vegetables, which is grown in the Greater Cairns region, maybe the biggest area in Australia, but it all goes to Brisbane, then back to Cairns. Then every 2 weeks, a boat goes up to the islands, and once every 2 weeks, it goes from TI out to the outer islands. So you're watching a race of people being, and I'm not going to use the word, but I think I know the word that's in everyone's minds here, when you destroy a race of people. There's a name for that. Very ugly word. They use it a lot with Hitler. But United Nations, sooner or later, are going to get onto this. Our life expectancy for the people that live in their community homelands is 54 years of age. People in this room is 82. And we took away their right to market gardens, their right to timber, their right to quarrying, because we're looking after it for them. We're looking after it for them. And to quote Paulie Neal at Yarrabah, we don't want you white fellas looking after us. We just want you to go away. He did use the word go away. He used another word, but this lady's present, And we're looking after them. The socialists look after them all the time, and that's the way they look after them. Yeah, it's depriving them of the right to make a living for themselves, or even the right to be able to stay alive. Yeah. I'm sorry to answer the question that way, but you asked me what I hate most, and well, there you go, And what I want to see for my country, if we get the balance of power, they will open up the Galilee Basin coalfields, which doubles Australia's coal production. And no thanks to the stinking coal miners' union, our wages have gone down from 183 to 138,000. Well, with that demand, the wage structure in coal will go up. A lot of people in this room may not like saying that, but I want the people of North Queensland to be the richest people on earth. I want them all to have 10 acres or 100 acres or like I own, 250,000 acres, if you like, whatever you want. And to be free. We're the most unfree country on earth. That's Queensland. It's nowhere near as bad in New South Wales or Victoria. It's bad, but it's nowhere near as bad in Queensland. So I'd answer the question that way. I want to see that freedom back that we enjoyed all of our lives, and I want to see us the opportunity for a boy that works and was a labourer in the mines of Mount Isa mines, end up owning 250,000 acres and owning no money on it. And that boy was me. So, I speak with passion.
Hi, how you going? Alex McLaughlin from Auctions Plus. You mentioned before how young people really connect with you, and because you don't play games with them, and you're really real. What advice would you sort of offer to the next generation coming through to sort of navigate the sort of agricultural space in sort of that 10 years' time?
I was at an IPA meeting last night, and I thought they were all old business people, and there are a few, but they're all young people, and I just think that I believe in Christianity. The Spirit of Jesus will come out, and those people will stand up and fight, and they'll realise that they're fighting for their nation. 62% of this country wants the coal industry closed. We only have three sources of income: gas, coal, and iron ore. We gave the gas away, so it's gone. Quatar gets 29,000 million for their gas. We get 600 million for the same amount of gas. We gave it away for nothing. So gas is gone. 62% want the coal mining closed down. That bankrupts your country. You've got nothing then. Gold, they're 120 billion. The next thing down is gold, about 20 billion. The next thing down is cattle and grain at about 15 billion. So you take out coal, the country's bankrupt. That is what they're fighting for. And that's why at the IPA meeting, all these young people, a number of them at university, came along to what I thought was, and there were old businessmen there, too. But so I have great faith in the young people. And this sounds terrible, I know, but please read my book. It's History of Australia. It's history of my country. And nothing could have looked worse for this country. Again and again. And quite rightly, the book is called, and I'll probably finish on this note. I, in a monumental breach of protocol somehow or other, ended up on the same table as the King and Queen of Spain. Now, they're not like our King or Queens. He is the head of state, and he was running it as a president, and he handed it over to democracy. Very famous, these people. They brought Spain out of the most terrible situation. And very famous, both of them. And she said, you Australians, I read the book on the convicts, and yes, Majesty, 1 in 3 of us that are here in Australia before the war were descended from either convicts or first Australians. And she said, really? She said, so you descended from all of that? She'd read the book on our convicts. And I said, with respect, Majesty, we ascended from all of that. And she said, what an incredible race of people you are. And really, until that point, I'd never thought about it. And that's what I entitled the book, An Incredible Race of People. And I just can't help but tell this one story. I was in the 49th Battalion. We're at war with Indonesia, and we were on 24-hour call-up to go over and fight. A battalion is 1,000 men in a battalion, and we were full battalion strength. And I was the unit historian. And I said to the Colonel, Colonel, we covered ourselves in glory First World War, Second World War. We fell back, we failed to hold ground, we wilted under fire, we retreated. It's all negative. So I said, what do you want to do, Katter? I said, I want to go, this is only 18 years after the Second World War ended, I said, I want to go down to the RSL and ask around. We might be a full-back battalion. But then again, a lot of these reports are very doctored. And he said, yeah, do that. So, anyone here know anything about the 49th Battalion? And bloke said, yeah, mate, come over here. He said, they were the worst hit of all. He said, when they were relieved at Sanananda, that's the bottom of Kokoda, there are only 28 of them able to walk out unassisted. And he said, you know how many men left Port Moresby? Yep, 783 men left Port Moresby. That's the incredible race of people, and they will get on top.